Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred. And I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and yeah, it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. And a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really excited to keep the ball rolling. And it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Good morning, everybody. It's Alfred Parsar Jr. back with another edition of the Metropolitan Report. But before we get into this morning's Metropolitan Report, I just want to remind everybody, if you enjoy this podcast, if you love the content, then go right below and hit that subscribe button. That way, once you hit the notification bell, well, you get notifications every time we go live. Every time there's a new video, you'll be one of the first ones to know when new content goes right here on YouTube. So, again, if you want to be the first to know or be in the know, you like what you see, then hit that subscribe button. If there's anything that I may say, anything that I may overlook, or any opinions that you have, feel free to chime in the comments. And once again, like the video. And if you know any Met fans who like podcasts that talk about their team, then share this podcast, the Metropolitan Report, with other Met fans. I appreciate all the support and love. So, today on the program, we're going to recap the series with the Minnesota Twins. We're going to talk some injury news, and we're going to look forward to the St. Louis Cardinals series that starts tonight. But, oh boy, where do we begin? The Mets lose this series against the Minnesota Twins. Very disappointing. The Twins were second to last in the AL Central entering this series on Monday. And the Mets, they won the opener 5-1 on Monday, but just just didn't have it. Minnesota wanted it more Tuesday and yesterday. Um, I well, you know what? Before we get into the negatives, let's talk about the positives. There's one guy on this team who, game to game, so far this season, you can tell all he wants to do is win. When the offense is flat, you can still count on his bat. I'm talking about Peter Morgan Alonso, a friend of the show, ladies and gentlemen. And I know the last couple of editions of the Metropolitan Report, we keep singing the praises of one Pete Alonso. But we have to. 3-game series in Minnesota. In the 3 games, Pete Alonso for the series hit 600. 600, ladies and gentlemen. He only had one home run and he only had 3 RBIs, but he also drew 3 walks. Very productive from Pete Alonso. Now, if you're saying, oh well, that's just a 3-game sample size there. Why do you keep talking about 3-game sample sizes? Well, should we go into how he's doing for the season? The man's hitting 365, 5 home runs, 21 RBI, OPS of 1.204. This is a guy whose praises deserve to be sung. You see, Pete Alonso, and I'm going to rehash this story for you non believers out there and you folks who say he wasn't worth the money. And when Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s impending free agency was coming before Toronto did the smart thing and locked him up for the rest of his career, uh, people were like, oh, well, Vladdy's coming. Oh, we got Mark Vientos. He could play first base, and we'll make do. Or we could get 2 or 3 players that can match Alonso's productivity. Or he's not great defensively. Well, let's talk. You see, Pete Alonso, yeah, he bet on himself. Turned down a 7-year extension the beginning of spring training last year. Okay, had a dud year. Saved the season in Milwaukee in the wild card round. Still gave you 34 homers last year. But that's neither here nor there. The man goes from a 4-year to a 3-year to a 2-year with a player option after this season. So the Mets gave him the deal that the Mets, or should I say David Stearns and Uncle Stevie Cohen wanted to give him, not the deal that Pete wanted. Pete wanted a long-term deal. He wanted to stay a Met the rest of his career, and he wants to retire a Met. And nonetheless, takes the deal, is going to bet on himself again because best believe if Pete Alonso can keep this production up, he's going to opt out at the end of the season. And by the way things look, Christian Walker, multi-year deal in Houston. Vladdy just got extended. He's probably going to retire on that contract with the Blue Jays. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and he's looking good for the Yankees so far, but he's older than Pete. What other first baseman? Matt Olson signed an extension with Atlanta. What other first baseman is going to be on the market that's actually going to be as productive as Pete Alonso? Nobody. And I can confidently tell you that. Fast forward to this season. Pete's just on a tear. What more can I say? It's like every series, we know that the one guy who's going to pull through is going to be Pete Alonso. And it all started with that with that first Miami series on the road, and it has been every series since. You wonder where other guys in the lineup are because, yeah, Juan Soto's off to a slow start in his Mets tenure. Again, it's early. Lindor, historically slow starts every season. It's the same song and dance with him. If by the time June, July comes along and he's still not hitting, then I'll go on a rant at that point in time. But Brandon Nimmo taking uninspired at bats. Starling Marte, you never know what you're going to get. And a lot of the hits that he's gotten this season look like they've been by luck. Beatty starting to hit. Had a 2-hit game the other day, but I'm still not sold and probably will never be sold on Brett Beatty offensively. Viento's starting to wake up, but still not producing enough. It's like the only guy not named Pete Alonso who we could actually say, all right, he has a fair chance to get a hit is Luis Torrens. But Pete Alonso seems like he's the only one coming to play every day, every single day. I don't get it. Pete Alonso is carrying this team offensively. Carrying. Like, I don't think you folks understand. Like, the Mets are 11-7 right now, sitting in first in the NL East on this young season entering today. Thank God the Phillies have been horrible in their last 10. They're playing under 500 ball. They're 4-6 in the last 10. But out of those 11 wins, I'm sure Pete Alonso is Pete Alonso is responsible for most of those 11 wins. Also, Alonso 21 RBIs. It's only been 18 games. He's got more RBIs than games played. He's leading the club in homers, leading the club in RBI, leading the club in OPS, leading the club in average. There is not one single solitary thing that I can say negatively about Pete Alonso. Absolutely, there's nothing negative I can say. And then people say that he's not a good defender either. Well, the shorthanded shortstop that we have, Francisco Lindor, he's leading the league he's tied for the league lead in errors. He has 4 on the season. Pete Alonso doesn't have 1. Maybe this is the year Pete can win a Gold Glove, because that's been the biggest knock on him is his plate discipline and his defense. And even his plate discipline. I mean, his plate discipline is far improved this season. Pete Alonso used to be a guy last season and years prior. You pitch to him, the pitch could be all the way up here. He'd swing at it. Could be all the way on the floor, ball hitting the dirt before it gets to the plate, and he'd swing. Not anymore. Pete Alonso so far this season, he's walked 12 times and only struck out 10. He's walked more than he struck out. It's always been the opposite with Pete. So I can't blame him at all for this series loss here. It's not his fault. It's so telling because the Mets were down by 3 yesterday, 3-0. They rallied in the 8th inning. And in a crucial at-bat in the 9th. Actually, no, not even in the 9th. In extra innings, because Juan Soto was on second, the ghost runner. Pete was the first man up. Alonso draws a walk. And he got so fired up and said, "Let's go, boys." He audibly yelled, "Let's go, boys." As he got out of the box, went down to first. And Jesse Winker, who actually had a decent game, Jesse Winker was 2 for 4 yesterday. But Jesse Winker, and why he's batting cleanup, I have no idea. I don't know what's going on through the mind of Carlos Mendoza, but what does Jesse Winker do? He grounds out into a double play with nobody out. Brandon Nimmo right behind him, uninspired at bat, pops up in foul territory. Twins walk it off and in extras. End of the game. The body language, the rest of these guys, like they should be taking notes from the Pete Alonso at Bat Academy. Pete Alonso always fired up. He could get a single, he treated like it was a home run. I don't get it. Like, and I've been saying it so far all through the season. When the rest of the team can't hit, because Pete Alonso can't do it by himself. When the rest of the team doesn't hit, the Mets don't win. They simply don't win. They had a barrage of offense on Monday, and you saw they won. But when the rest of the team doesn't hit, it's like forget about it. Yeah, Juan Soto had a home run on Tuesday, but so did Pete, and that wasn't enough. And the pitching's been good. You look at the game on Tuesday. Tyler McGill started. He only gave up 2 runs through 5 innings. That's not a bad start. Granted, Max Kranick, who's been shut down, lockdown, didn't expect him to give up 2 runs in relief, but it happens. Even yesterday's game, it was a bullpen game. Because Griffin Canning was supposed to start, but he was scratched with an illness. He'll start tonight, sorry. He'll start tonight against the Cardinals, but we'll get into that later. But the bullpen, for the most part, held it down. Huascar Brazoban started. Scoreless inning. Justin Hageman, in his major league debut, only gave up a run in 3 1/3. Jose Butto gave up 2 runs in an inning and 2/3. That was the clunker. But Stanek, Minter, and Diaz were great. Reed Garrett only threw 1 pitch and the game was over, but that's neither here nor there. That's the ghost runner rule. If Rob Manfred hadn't messed up the game of baseball in extra innings, that base hit, who knows what might have happened, because there would have been no runner on second to come home on a single. But that's neither here nor there. So the pitching's been good. And again, you want to look at how the Twins won. Again, they lost 5-1 to us on Monday. They just wanted it more on Tuesday, and not including extra innings. The Twins, they only scored 3 runs on yesterday, not including the 10th inning walk off. When your pitching staff, both the rotation and the bullpen combined, give up 3 runs or less and you still lose, there's no offense. Now, granted, the Mets had 9 hits in the game yesterday, but they couldn't even string the hits together. The Mets could not string those hits together until the 8th inning when they scored 3 to tie the game up. You look at Tuesday's loss, 7 hits, 2 belonged to Alonso. He was the only Met with a multi-hit game. You know, and I hate to say this because, Pete's on a tear, but there's going to become a point in time where he's going to be due for some regression sooner or later. So the rest of this team has to get with it and get it together. There's no reason why Starling Marte and Brandon Nimmo and Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos are just ice cold. Now, I know that people say, well, you can't win them all. That's why it's a 3-game series. You take 2 out of 3 and win the series. This is the first series in the last 6 that the Mets have lost. It's just frustrating to see certain things happen. The Mets had the bases loaded at one point in the game. Juan Soto, uninspired at bat, grounds out to first. The first baseman for the Twins, Edward Julian, doubles him up unassisted, tagged Francisco Lindor at first and stepped on the bag. Like, you couldn't even put the ball in the air, give yourself a chance. Granted, in the Mets also, the Twins actually would have scored 2 runs, and this game wouldn't even have got to extras if first base umpire Hunter Wendelstadt didn't blow a call and the Mets didn't have a challenge left. But again, you can't leave the game in the hands of the umpires, because things like that do happen. The umpires are humans. They will make mistakes. And as frustrating as that error was, and it came back to that blown call, as frustrating as the blown call was, it did come back to haunt the Mets, because the Mets couldn't hit their way out of a paper bag until the 8th inning yesterday. So until I see otherwise, and I'm going to give Pete Alonso all the credit, game in and game out, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 games where he's taken an offer so far this season, he's the catalyst. He's the catalyst. What more can I say? Pete Alonso keeps continuing to have a phenomenal series after phenomenal series after phenomenal series. He's the team MVP right now. And if we're going to hope to win this series, or at least break even with the Cardinals this weekend, we're probably going to have to rely on Pete Alonso, and that's just a fact. I feel bad for Jose Siri being hurt, and more on that later. But he only had 1 hit all year. Tyrone Taylor, not much better. Luis Angel Acuna, the young rookie phenom, had a great cup of coffee last year. And I guess there's no caffeine left in the espresso, because he's not playing like the guy we saw in 39 at bats at the end of last season. It's very telling when Luis Torrens, who was intended to be a backup to start the year, has the second best batting average on the team. A guy who, when Francisco Alvarez comes back, is going to have permanent seat on the bench. But again, Pete Alonso doing phenomenal. If he does hit regression, which no hitter, unless you're like Tony Gwynn back in 1994, no hitter is going to stay hot forever. So there's going to come a point in time where Pete's going to go cold, and I wouldn't even be mad if he went cold because of look at what all he's done up to this point. But if Pete Alonso goes cold, I would be very, very afraid of the lack of offense that this team would be capable of with the polar bear going cold. But I hope that it doesn't get to that because he goes cold, we may not win for a while. But disappointing series. I had the Mets taking 2 or 3, and I said it. I said it on Monday. This Twins team can be very sneaky. I thought they were only going to win 1. I thought they were going to steal 1. They ended up winning 2. Granted, they had an umpire assist to help them yesterday, but that's neither here nor there. The record book is not going to show that. But disappointing series loss. And again, Pete Alonso can't do it by himself. I know Juan Soto had the home run that everybody was happy to see on Tuesday, but it is not enough. It is not enough. You're not going to win baseball games scoring 3 runs when the opponent is scoring 6 and 4. And you look at all these other teams in the league. Dodgers are high-octane offense. Padres winning games, but with more runs than that. You're not gonna win games. Just you're not gonna, and then you're not. The thing that really gets me, you're not gonna win games when you're not hitting, but to not hit against a below par pitching staff, that's what gets me. Check the starter for the Twins on Tuesday, Bailey Ober. He entered that game with a 7.71 ERA. And you mean to tell me the best the Mets could do was muster up 3 runs? And if I check the box score, the 3 runs the Mets scored, yeah, they were all attributed to Ober. The guy averages an earned run average of 7, and you only get 3? And their bullpen is not the greatest on earth. And then their bullpen was locked down, shut down. So this offense has to wake up. Losing to a team that's second to last in their division, not acceptable. You gotta win the series that you should win. I know it's early. I know we're in April, but say the Mets start sliding in late August, all of September. We're gonna look back on series like this that should have been won, especially if the Twins end up turning into a dumpster fire, which I predict will happen. But again, this is not a Twins podcast, so I'm not going to go down that route. But bottom line, we should have won that series. On paper, we were favored to win that series. And if it's not Pete Alonso, then who will it be? Somebody's got to step up because, again, nobody stays hot forever. Pete is going to regress at some point this season. I hope he doesn't, but at some point this season, he'll be due for regression. And when that happens, if nobody else is hot on the team, then I wonder what the offense is going to look like. And it's a true testament that this team, between Pete Alonso's hot streak and as good as the pitching has been, that we're in first place through 18 games so far, 1 game up on the Phillies entering play today. Let's talk some injury news. Of course, it was revealed, and I briefly touched on it on our Instagram page, which you can follow, by the way, at _Metropolitan_Report. But I did touch on it on the Instagram. We spoke about it before we knew what the diagnosis was on Monday's edition of the Metropolitan Report. But Jose Siri, with a fractured tibia, he hit the injured list. So he is going to be out for a good amount of time. Fractured tibia, not easy to come back from. I mean, after all, the man was carted off the field in Sacramento. So What are the Mets going to do you ask? Well, a couple of interesting developments. Like I said on Monday, I would not be surprised if Jose Azocar gets called up from Syracuse. Jose Azocar, former San Diego Padre. He is a major league veteran with experience, more of a defensive player and more of a speedy base runner. Don't expect him to hit the lights out, but I would expect him to play in center field sporadically. I do expect him to enter games that he's on the bench. When he's on the bench, he'll enter games as a pinch runner in late game situations or in late game situations where the Mets are on defense. He'll probably be subbed into the game as a defensive replacement to make sure a win gets locked down. But Azocar, and it's been reported by Anthony DiComo, the Mets beat writer, that he should be expected to be added to the big league club at some point in the next couple of days, if not immediately for this series tonight against the Cardinals. But Jose Azocar, also familiar with the organization, he had a brief cup of coffee last season with the Mets after being traded from the Padres to the Mets, and he was in camp with the club this season in Port St. Lucie in the spring. Another interesting twist to this conundrum is Jeff McNeil. Now, Jeff McNeil, it's been reported that in his next game with Single A St. Lucie tonight, he is going to get reps in center field. Very interesting because while Jeff McNeil, who is primarily a second baseman, he has played the corner before, so he's played left field, he's played right field, and he has played center field just 3 times in his major league career. They're going to give him some reps at center field to see if we can help out, or if he can help out, rather, pardon me. Jeff McNeil, former batting champion, so his bat is proven. He's always been solid defensively, but it's very interesting because the Mets do have other options. Of course, they could put McNeil in left where he's played and shift Brandon Nimmo back to center where he's patrolled for so long. But if they're hesitant to do that, of course, Starling Marte, who some people say has lost a step on his feet, agility-wise, he can also play center as well, even though I don't think they'll shy away from using him as a DH only. Tyrone Taylor in center field been awful. Has struggled in center field. And after what happened yesterday, of course, the Twins walked it off in extras, but the ball was hit to Tyrone Taylor. And I don't know if maybe he got a late step, but he could have got that ball and played it on a hop and misplayed the ball, and the Twins brought the man home from second and won the game. I've seen, well, he's not making errors, but he just looks overwhelmed in center field at times. And I quite frankly have seen enough of Tyrone Taylor. He was platooning with Jose Siri. And like I've always said, it's one thing if you can play defense, but the man is not playing great defense, and he's also not hitting. So, I mean, Jesse Winker can also, well, Jesse Winker more of a corner outfielder, so you're not gonna insert Jesse Winker into center field. But Jeff McNeil is said to get some reps. He will start for St. Lucie in their game tonight at center field. So it's a very interesting situation. Again, Jeff McNeil, 3 career games at center field. He's played a bunch of left and right, as well as his primary position, second base. So interesting to see how things are going to turn out. Now, Jeff McNeil, despite this news of the Mets wanting him to play center while he's rehabbing in the minors, Jeff McNeil is nowhere near ready to come up to the big league level. But there is another second baseman on the roster who can play center field. That would be Luis Angel Acuna. Now, Acuna has never played center field in the majors. He's played center field in the minors, but even so, he's only played center field in the minors on a small sample size. Only 10 games in his minor league career has he played at center field. He did not have any reps in spring training this season in center field. Of course, because of the logjam, all those outfielders who were capable of playing center for the Mets in spring training this year. Of course, they had Jose Azocar, Jose Siri, Tyrone Taylor, and the now departed Pittsburgh Pirate Alexander Canario. Which this whole situation with Siri going down, it does hurt because we could have kept Canario, but of course hindsight's 2020. But it would have been great to have Canario here, but that's neither here nor there. You can't dwell on a man who's not here anymore. But uh, putting Acuna at second is not something that I would do, and I'll tell you why. Because if we shift Acuna to center field, Brett Baty now has to become the everyday second baseman. And I've gone on my soapbox about Brett Baty already. The man is a quadruple A player. He couldn't master his own position at third base. He looks awkward and uncomfortable at second. He has not looked good at second at all this season, and he's not hitting. So by moving Luis Angel Acuna to center field, you now need somebody to replace him at second. Do you really want Brett Baty to play every day? It's bad enough he's conned his way onto the major league club. Again, he's the greatest spring training con man I've ever seen. But he can't hit. He can't field. I get it. I get the case for Acuna out of everybody. Acuna is the youngest. He's the fastest. He'll be able to handle it. But we're also talking about a guy who's never played this position at a major league level. What's the difference between playing center in the majors and in the minors? It's the hitters at the plate. Exit velocities are going to be higher in the show. Reaction times are going to have to be quicker because guys are hitting bombs to center field. And again, he's never played that position at the big league level in his professional career. He's only done it 10 times. So I don't like the idea of Acuna going to center field. I'm more comfortable when he comes back with Jeff McNeil going to center. But like I said, Acuna going to center is a double whammy because, again, and I said that, and I felt the same way when Buck Showalter had Dom Smith play left field and the man's a first baseman back in the day. But you got a guy with very little experience and with no experience, by the way, at the major league level going to center field. And then you got this moron Baty who would have to play second every day until McNeil comes back. It's just a disaster. It's a disaster on both parts. Not to say I don't believe in Acuna, but I'd rather have him at second than Brett Baty. But again, it's all an interesting twist how Carlos Mendoza wants to manufacture these options now. Because we've never seen Acuna at this level at center field. We've only seen Jeff McNeil at this level in center field 3 times. And for as long as I've been watching Mets baseball, I don't even remember the 3 times he played center. I've seen him in left. I've seen him in right. I practically live in Citi Field every year. Never seen the man play center field. Upon hearing that, I had to actually look it up. Couldn't find any video of it, by the way, but it does exist in the ledger. But this whole center fielder situation is messy. What I would do for now, I understand that you may not want Starling Marte to play center, and that's okay because you have to preserve his body. But maybe throw Jesse Winker in there. But I don't want to see any more Tyrone Taylor either. I didn't like what I saw from him in the field since Siri has been down. But I've seen enough of Tyrone Taylor. And again, the Mets, they do have enough outfielders. Like I said, Azocar might have to be the everyday center fielder going forward until further notice. But I'd rather Azocar than Tyrone Taylor. Azocar is known for his defense and his agility. I think he'd work out better than Taylor. That's just my opinion. I'm giving the vote to Jose Azocar. I'm sorry, but Taylor, he's not hitting. and he's not playing defense, so what value do you have on the team? He's good for the occasional hit, but that's about it. But we'll see what happens. But it's just interesting that Carlos Mendoza trying to manufacture these options with Acuna and McNeil rehabbing in the minors at center field starting tonight for Single A St. Lucie. But moving on now to some Mets news that's not necessarily Mets related. It was announced earlier in the week that star shortstop Francisco Lindor will be the team captain for Team Puerto Rico in the 2026 World Baseball Classic next year. I hate to be the negative guy, I really, really do. But after what happened to Edwin Diaz 2 years ago in 2023, an injury that I believe is still affecting him till this day because you could see it in his velocity on his four-seamer. I don't think I want any of my guys on a World Baseball Classic roster. Several reasons. And I covered this 2 years ago. The video is still on this YouTube page. You can scroll and find it. But when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, the World Baseball Classic is held in March. You know what else is in March? Spring training is in March. And you take these guys who, let's say the Mets don't make the playoffs this year. Season ends the end of September. Let's say they go on a run and they make the playoffs. Their season's going to end at some point in October, mid to late October. They don't play baseball in November, December, January, February. So they have a 4-month layoff. Yeah, these guys might work out and do drills, but nobody's playing competitive baseball. Then to get these guys to report to camp the last week of February, and then after about a week and a half to 2 weeks, they join their World Baseball Classic teams, and they're playing in a playoff environment. Because what the World Baseball Classic is, it's a round robin style tournament. Everybody's trying to advance. Sure, you could lose a game here or there in the opening round in your pool, but I mean, in all actuality, I understand this is playing for your country. This is about being proud of where you come from and wanting to represent. And a lot of these guys, we saw it in 2023. Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso played for Team USA. Omar Narvaez, when he was here, he played for Venezuela. Jose Quintana played for Colombia. Lindor and Diaz played for Puerto Rico. But the risk of injury is just absurd. Especially for guys like Lindor. Historically slow starts in April and May, but in all of March in the World Baseball Classic, the guy's hitting the lights out. And then you got to worry about guys getting hurt in the tournament. Edwin Diaz didn't even get hurt playing a game. He got hurt after the game because his teammates mobbed him after he got the save and ended up breaking his fibula, bouncing up and down on him in a celebration after Puerto Rico defeated the Dominican Republic. And that's another thing. Juan Soto is probably playing for DR. We just signed him to a 15-year, $785 million contract. God forbid he gets hurt. Imagine what type of blow that would be. And as much of a train wreck as 2023 was, and he didn't play for us that year, but that Edwin Diaz injury hurt because we had no closer in late game situations that year. Well, we had a closer because somebody had to fill in, but you know what I mean. Like, we didn't have our closer, the closer. So, and again, that injury affects Edwin Diaz till this day. If you don't believe me, watch the velocity on his fastball. It's not the same because he hurt his plant leg. So while I'm happy for Lindor, he gets to be the captain of his of the country's team that he was born and raised in. He gets to lead his countrymen into battle in the World Baseball Classic, but I don't think it. And I hate to be that guy, but I don't think it's worth it. These guys don't even get paid to play in these games. God forbid you get hurt. Something is if something goes wrong, you're gonna risk it all in games where you're not being compensated to affect missing games for the team that pays you. I think the Mets need Francisco Lindor more than Puerto Rico does, but hey, I mean, if you disagree with what I'm saying or you think my take is wrong, feel free to sound off in the comments. But I'm after what happened to Edwin Diaz 2 years ago, I'm not excited for the World Baseball Classic at all, especially because these guys they go through spring training a year and a half. Well, no, sorry, a week and a half, not a year and a half, a week and a half. That's not enough time to ramp up. In the first week and a half, there isn't even any exhibition games yet, or probably one or two, and your star player will probably only take one at bat max in those games before they, because you know how they do it in spring training for the star players. You get one at bat in the first couple of games. Then as spring training progresses, the month grows out till it gets closer to opening day. That's when they ramp you up and you take maybe two at bats in a game, three at bats in a game till they work you up to four. But playing in a playoff like atmosphere that early after a 4 or possibly 5 month layoff, we see guys get hurt in the classic all the time. I disagree with it. But I mean, if that's what he wants to do, because I do understand national pride and I do understand wanting to lead your country into something great, and because it is a great accomplishment to say that you won the World Baseball Classic. Some of these guys rather win a World Baseball Classic than a World Series. Some guys win both. Look at Shohei Ohtani, won the World Series last season and the year before. Uh, he was pitching and hitting in the World Baseball Classic, and some people will say him striking out Mike Trout um, partially led to him getting Tommy John the end of 2023, even though it didn't affect his ability to hit, but that's neither here nor there. But Francisco Lindor named the team captain for next year's Team Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic. I wish him nothing but the best in the Classic next year, but my main concern is what Francisco Lindor is doing for the New York Mets this season. And hopefully he can wake up and play like he's playing in the World Baseball Classic, because historically in the Classic, he hits the lights out. I need him to do that in Flushing this weekend against the Cardinals. Speaking of the Cardinals, the Mets open up a series tonight against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Mets have a 4-game series tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday against the Cardinals at Citi Field. They're back home after playing 3 over the past weekend in Sacramento, then going to Minnesota on Monday. And then they have the Cardinals for 4, starting at 7 p.m. tonight, 7 p.m. tomorrow, 4 p.m. Saturday, and 1:40 p.m. on Sunday. Now, this Cardinals club, a lot of people said that the Cardinals were not going to be a good team this year. However, the Cardinals are playing 500 baseball. They're tied for 3rd, and they're 1 game out of 2nd in the NL Central. They're at 9-9 right now, 3 games behind the NL Central leading Cubs. Of course, the Cubs played 2 extra games more than everybody in that division when they had the Tokyo series against the Dodgers this season. So they started their season early. But this Cardinal team, 9-9, playing 500 ball. A lot of people would have expected them to be under 500 at this point in the year. The Cardinals' offense has been somewhat dangerous so far this season when we look at players to watch out for on the Cardinals. Start off with Brendan Donovan, the former Colorado Rocky. He's hitting the lights out at an average of .380, 2 home runs, 11 RBI, 2 stolen bases. And then also rookie Thomas Sagasi. He's hitting the lights out too, batting 455 with one homer and five RBI. And then Lars Nootbaar, who was on the aforementioned Team Japan that won the World Baseball Classic in 2023. Nootbaar batting 284. He's got three taters with 10 RBIs and two stolen bases. So Donovan, Sagasi, and Nootbaar all hitting the lights out. These are guys who our pitching staffs have to watch out for, especially Donovan with 380 and Sagasi having a great rookie season so far. This kid again batting 455. Just hit his first career home run not that long ago. So he's hot and he's looking to build off that momentum. And of course, Nootbaar, again, batting 284. He's the home run leader of the trio, and he's also got 10 RBI to go with it. So this Cardinal team, not the names you would expect, because Nolan Arenado is the star player of this team, the most notable offensive player, as is the catcher Contreras. But those two not doing damage so far this season. But these three definitely are dangerous in that Cardinal lineup. But the key for the Mets in this series, the offense has to be able to keep up. Because this Cardinals team is a better team than the Minnesota team, than that Minnesota Twins team that just took 2 or 3 from us in that series in Minnesota. So the Mets offense is going to have to keep up. I do believe that the Mets offense can keep up. We're going to take a look at the pitching matchup for this series that starts tonight at Citi Field. The Mets back home. I know they're happy to be back home. When you look at the pitching matchup, it's not going to be easy, though, because tonight it's going to be Griffin Canning on our side going up against Andre Palante. Palante is 2-0 with a 2.20 ERA. Anytime you got a pitcher, a starter whose ERA is 3.50 or lower, he is an effective starter. But then tomorrow's game should be a bit easier. Well, should be, because we couldn't tag Bailey over like we should have. But David Peterson, who's been solid so far this season, he's going to go up against Miles Michaelis. Michaelis has been struggling mightily so far this season. He's 0-2 on the year with an ERA of 9. Saturday's matchup is going to be Matthew Liberatore, who at one point was a young, often talked about prospect in the Cardinals organization. Hasn't really translated to the big leagues yet, but he's off to a decent start. He's 1-1 with a 3.93 ERA. He's going to go up against Kodai Senga, who's 2-1 with a 1.06 ERA. And in the finale, it's going to be Sonny Gray, who is undefeated on the season. He's 3-0 with a 3.13 ERA. Going up against Clay Holmes, who has had 2 back-to-back impressive starts. He has 18 strikeouts in his last 2 starts. Of course, Clay Holmes 2-1 with a 3.66 ERA. Clay Holmes had a rough first 2 starts, but his last 2 against Miami and against Minnesota have been good. So Clay Holmes, the only thing I want to see out of Clay Holmes is just to make it past the 5th inning. But again, Holmes, as time goes on, he's been getting better as a starter. But Sonny Gray is no slouch either, sitting at 3-0 on the year. My personal prediction, I do believe that the Mets are going to split this series. I don't think there's going to be a series winner. I don't think the Mets or the Cardinals win the series. I think each team is going to come away with 2 wins. 4-game series are tough, but I do think that it's going to be split 2-2. So Citi Field starting tonight up until Sunday, and then after Sunday, the Mets host the Philadelphia Phillies for 3, and that series could be interesting because first place could potentially be on the line depending on how the Phillies do this weekend. But the Phillies will visit the Mets on Monday, and then the Mets will finally have an off day on Thursday before they head on a road trip to Washington, D.C. to play the Nationals. But we will be back on Monday to recap this Cardinals series and bring you any type of news that may pop up with this Mets organization. Once again, if you like the podcast, you like the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can be the first one to know about brand new editions of the Metropolitan Report. And once again, I am Alfred Parsard Jr. We'll see you Monday, and let's go Mets.